Sempre sono quello Arhiwakehte Nicholas Kanehsatà na ko my name is Clifton Arihwakehte Nicholas from the community of Kanehsatà, which is in Oka, Quebec. Oka and Kanehsatà are the same place, so not near Oka, but it is Kanehsatà. So we're here tonight to discuss indigenous sovereignty, and I guess I would have to just start discussing some of the aspects of different communities. I think it's important to note, like, some people get confused on the outside community on what is indigenous sovereignty. Indigenous sovereignty does not involve any type of band council governance. Let's begin with this. This is not a sovereign entity. And this is part of the problem. A large part of the problem that we have in indigenous communities is just that there's a confusion, even amongst our own people sometimes, and amongst the people who run these offices, that the band council system is a representative. It isn't. It is a representative of colonial government imposed upon indigenous communities. It's a form of apartheid government. It is the original form of apartheid government. It has to be understood that when this legislation was created, it was never created for our benefit. It was created to keep us in place, keep us in check. And that's exactly what it does. So now, instead of reporting to the authorities about our activities, they keep us in check with economic terrorism. So if you need funding, you need money, they say you can't have it unless you toe the line. And in fact, if you look in most indigenous communities, and I'm talking for Kanien'kehá people, Mohawk people, you know, maybe 5%, or maybe about 5%, 10% max, vote for these band council governments. The rest of the people in the community don't vote. If you look at our communities, and again I'm speaking on behalf of Kanien'kehá people, and for other communities it runs in different fashions, and I'll get into that in a minute, just to get people understanding, because I know a lot of you people involve yourselves directly, and I'm very grateful for that there are people in this room that I know personally, that do involve themselves in the struggles in indigenous communities. The reason why I'm bringing up these issues with band council governance is just to get you an idea of where you go and where not to go. But in Mohawk communities in particular, there are parallels, right? You have the band council governance, which is the so-called official government recognized entity in the community. Then you have traditional government. Now, if you want to look at it in a legal perspective, when treaties were made back in the day, particularly when you're talking about Kanien'kehá people, you're talking about Kaswanta, the Turtle Treaty, which is the first treaty, a peace treaty that was made by the Kanien'kehá people and the Dutch in Albany, New York, just saying, don't interfere with us, we won't interfere with you. You have your boat, we have our canoe, we'll go on that river together, we'll do this in peace, but you can't be in my boat and I won't be in your canoe. You know, we can't interfere with each other. This is the first treaty. And who was that treaty made with? It was not made with a band council government. It wasn't made with a grand chief or a band council or an Indian Act representative. It was made with traditional leadership, traditional government. And anytime they want to do anything legitimate to honor the so-called legalities of things, they have to do these things with traditional government. Because these are the original signatories. The original people who made the agreements in the community with their nation, with the other nations. These are the people that the holders of those titles, the holders of those rights, not the band council government. There's kind of a conflict of interest if you think about it. How can an employee of the government negotiate with the government? Basically, this is what a band council person is an employee of the Canadian government. The reason why I bring this up is that sometimes we have activists that go into other communities to do solidarity work. And some people will guide them into the hands of band council people, right? And all the band council people are not necessarily for the benefit of the community because they're wrangled by the rules and regulations of the Indian Act that governs their actions. And I want to be fair about it, that there are some communities that have elected councils, and the people on the council are trying their best to do what they have to. But it has to be kept in mind that they'll never be able to do it because of the rules that they're party to. What the Indian Act is, again, as I mentioned earlier, is apartheid legislation. It is apartheid legislation designed to keep the indigenous person on the reserve, keep them off the land, to open their land for exploitation, period. It's a series of segregation laws, which are still into effect to this day. These segregation laws are on the books. You know, there's still the Department of Indian Affairs operating within Ottawa, and this is the be-all, end-all of anything that Indigenous people have to do within Canada has to be done under that framework. And it's a very oppressive nature of that law. There's a very oppressive way about it in how it keeps our people from being able to take our land back, be able to control their destinies. Because nothing can be done without the assent of the heads of the Department of Indian Affairs, which are always non-Indigenous people who are dictating how things are going to be done. Dictating to us how we're going to get our land back. Dictating to us how we have to prove to them that the land is ours. This is all within that framework of the apartheid legislation. Very destructive, intrusive. And a lot of times it's aimed at the destruction of the social fiber within the communities. If you look at the legislation that existed prior to 1980, where women would marry outside, were not Indians anymore under law. I use the term Indian because that's what they use in that legislation. But if men married a non-native woman, she became an Indian. I don't know how that works, you know, in reality, but this is what they did. It was directly aimed at destroying the fiber of the community. Somebody went to go get post-secondary education. At that point, they had to leave the community. They weren't allowed to be in the community. Under the Indian Act, we weren't allowed to hire lawyers. And even though these things have come to pass, they're not applicable anymore, the legacy of these things still exists. The legacy of that legislation, the legacy of that intrusiveness, that way of keeping us away from fighting or defending ourselves, still has a lasting effect in the community. It was funny that I have a cousin who was on the council in Kanehsatà, and I told him, so I was joking around with him. I said, congratulations, my Indian Act cousin, you know, Indian Act council cousin, right? Oh, it's not Indian Act. He said, but you are Indian Act. Oh, no, I'm not, we're custom. Because then there's a stipulation within the Indian Act that chooses what kind of system of governance you'll use under the Indian Act, right? You can use electoral system or you can use custom system. But it still boils down to using their system, right? They'll just give you the illusion of having that choice. And under their mindset, they think that they have a choice, that they're using their customary system. And I explained to him that the only system that is customary is not within the framework of the Band Council system. It is the traditional government that our ancestors practiced. That the common heritage that we had is this legacy of Kanien'kehá, the great law, the rules of conduct that we have through that law to do what we have to do to govern ourselves, do what we have to do to maintain ourselves as a community, as a people. That's traditional law, that's custom. What's in the Indian Act is not custom. It's simply there, again, like I said, to control you. And you know, there's been so many times that I've seen it just within my community in Kanehsatà, just how effective the destructive nature of those laws and that legislation in that department in the government is. Another one of community members was in a position of Grand Chief, which is again kind of counterintuitive to what we practice in reality with the traditional systems, would not toe the line with Ottawa, would not agree to doing what they want to do in regards to policing, in regards to land claims, in regards to economic development. So what did the Ottawa do? Cut off all the funds. That's where the economic terrorism is in play. There's two sides to the coin, you know. I'm talking sovereignty, you know, there's an important issue of sovereignty. But at the same time, this system of government, this system of legislation,
speak the truth,
has been used to paralyze the community, where 90% of the employment comes from the Band Council office. 90% of the funding for anything comes from this entity. Every time that Indigenous people exercise their sovereign rights to do something, to prop up their economy in their community, they're deemed illegal. It's taken away from them. Oh, let's run a bingo. You can't do that. Quebec doesn't want you to do that. Ottawa doesn't want you to do that. You can't do that. That's illegal. let's sell some cigarettes. You know, I don't that's ours. Tobacco's ours. No, you can't do that. It's illegal. It's contraband. You can't do that. It's wrong. Okay, then we'll do it anyways, and then they'll send the police on us. Time and time again, it happens over and over and over again. It's getting harder though, because we're not taking this shit so much anymore. We're not so passive as we were. I mean, we're never really passive, but there was a period of time for our people, and I speak on behalf of Kanehsatà, where we were browbeaten. Talking that period in the 1920s to the 1980s and 90s, where people would just keep their head down and not want to stir any trouble up. But that generation is gone, and people becoming more and more knowledgeable of what has been going on, more and more knowledgeable of what they have to do, more and more unwilling to take the shit. You know, and they want to do more, they want to see more happen. It's a sad reflection though, that, you know, I'm at my age now. I had very high hopes when I was a young man during the 1990 crisis that things would change, right? But that Indian system, it does so much to undermine what we do in our communities. You know, they very nefariously use their laws and their tactics to undermine us totally. And it doesn't seem to ever end. But I guess the light in that dark place is the fact that our traditional people and our traditional government and our mentality when it regards that is very strong. And even some of the people in our community who are detractors against traditional government still respect it. They still say, yeah, you know, it still has its place. We still fight hard to keep it. We still fight hard to apply it. But it's hard. It's very hard to do in this day and age because of all the influences and all the pressures that we have around us. Now, many of us are forced into a situation where we have to conform to certain things. And we try very hard to be non-conforming with that. We try very hard to exercise our sovereignty, you know, by, you know, doing what we have to do within our community, regardless of these laws on the outside. You know, trying to develop an economy independently of what happens within the Canadian society, within those laws that the government of Canada imposes on us. We try to provide our own documentation, you know, our own passport systems. But always there to undermine us, always trying to take that rug from under us, right? To try and undermine the work that we're trying to do to be sovereign people. But this will never go from us. We're always going to be here. We're always going to be fighting. We're always going to be sovereign people. You know, in the way we act, in the way we think. I'm not a Canadian. You're not Canadian. He's not Canadian. He's not American. You know, we're Haudenosaunee people, Mi'kmaq people, Innu people, Maliseet people, different nations, 11 nations in here. We're all independent nations. We're all independent people, sovereign peoples. And we have to keep fighting for that. And, you know, we have to make people understand this is who we are. Like I always say, particularly in Quebec, I use a little play on words, right? I'm Iroquois, not Quebecois. And this is what we are, right? It's kind of a mind bend for some people. What do you mean you're not Canadian? You're not a Quebecer. You're not this. You're not that. Well, Mohawk. There's an alternate reality. And when you enter our communities, you see the alternate reality at play, where you see that the fact that there are people who exist within the community that don't exist under the structures of the Indian Act. At least try not to. And I guess I'm going to pass it on. I could take the mic time this whole night. I'll pass it on to my, I guess we'll go this way. Now go on.